Okay, so we do have a quorum. So let's start our meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Actually, you know what? I'm going to throw one thing out, Jeff. We have, as we mentioned earlier, we have 2 members of our commission leaving us next month, which I understand we have one of those vacancies filled. And one of the vacancies is our vice chair. We may do it at the good of the order, but maybe just a brief discussion about who would be a good candidate for vice chair, and we could have that election tonight or just a discussion tonight. But I do think it is something we should talk about. Any thoughts, Jeff?
Sure. You can, somebody, if you want to, second the motion to amend the agenda to allow discussion of that. Yeah, just,
Would you all be open to amending our agenda to have a discussion about our vice chair?
I amend my motion to include that discussion.
Seconded.
Okay. Who seconded? That was you, Mike?
Yep.
Great. Any discussion? Emily, will you please call roll?
Absolutely. Commissioner Matusik? Commissioner Bates?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Sinclair?
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf?
Yes.
Chair Newton?
Yes. Agenda is approved. Moving on to the consideration of the minutes from our November 22nd Planning Commission meeting. Are there any amendments to those minutes? If there are no amendments, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I
Motion
move
to
to
approve.
I heard a couple of approvals. Anyone want?
Seconded.
Okay. Mike, we'll give you the approval and Mickey the second.
Sure.
Fair enough. All right. Any discussion? I had a question. No, I can wait on that. Never mind. Emily, will you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Bates?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Sinclair?
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf?
Yes.
Chair Newton?
Yes. Okay, Emily, I saw an amendment to email today. I couldn't tell what that was. Are the minutes that are the chair instructions that you sent me the same chair instructions that I?
Yes, they are.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to a quasi judicial hearing, continuation of SR 22-03, beach construction on behalf of Eric and Rachel Purdy. Application to allow setback reduction to reduce the front yard setback and side yard setback. SR 22-03, beach construction on behalf of Eric and Rachel Purdy. Application to allow setback reduction to reduce the front yard setback from the required 15 feet to 9 feet 10 inches and the side yard setback from the required 15 feet for a corner lot to 11 feet in order to reduce the number of trees that would need to be removed in conjunction with the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is located at the corner of Ross Lane and Spruce Street, tax lot 10,200, map 51030DA, and in a residential medium density R2 zone. The request will be reviewed against the municipal code section 17.645.010 setback reduction provisions established. Does anyone object to the planning commission? Sorry. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the planning commission to hear this matter at this time? Does any commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commission member had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Site visit?
Site visit.
Jeff, may we have the staff report?
Excuse me, yes. This is a continuation from last month's meeting. And this is from the addendum that was sent out this afternoon, December 22nd. So during the November 22nd meeting, the commission requested additional information regarding the number of trees that may be preserved as a result of the proposed setback reduction, as well as a professional assessment from the city arborist. A letter prepared by the arborist dated November 30th has been added to the record as Exhibit C3. The applicant submitted a site plan and tree preservation plan letter prepared by Joe Bolden of Bolden and Associates Arboriculture Services on December 15th that has been added to the record as A4. Based on the information in Exhibit A4, there are 5 trees that are identified for preservation. Shortly before this meeting, there was some additional information received from Mr. Bolden and also from Jeff Gearhart, the city arborist, regarding the site plan and the trees to be preserved. This is in Exhibit A6, which is a slightly more clear map of the property. And when I get a chance here in a second, I'll bring that map up. But that does show where the trees would be preserved, and it also appears to show that the position of the house may have been changed. In fact, let me see if I can bring my screen up and share that. Having a couple of technical hiccups here.
Robert, you want me to bring that up?
If you could, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is Exhibit A6. This is the most recent map submitted by the consulting arborist. In this, it appears the trees to be preserved are marked here in green. So there are 4 trees that will be facing the Spruce Street frontage here, and there is another tree here along the back side on the kind of the western lot line that would be marked for preservation as well. Based on this map, it does appear that they have relocated where the house would be set from the original application, which would have it closer to the Spruce and Ross intersection down here toward the bottom right of the down where I'm moving I'm not sure if you can see me moving the mouse. Yeah, down there. It appears that they have shifted it toward the northwestern corner of the property, and you can see that there's a measurement of 4 feet 9 3/16 inches up toward the top left corner, and that would be less than the 5 foot minimum setback. And there's another reference to a 4 foot 8 3/4 inches farther down on the western side. So it appears that the original application has been modified somewhat to shift it away from the corner and closer to that western property line. Based on the assessment of the city arborist, Jeff Gearhart, which has been included in the addendum packet that went out this afternoon, he has been supportive of this and does believe that it addresses his concerns regarding tree preservation and preservation of roots on the adjacent property to the west.
Okay, anything further, Robert?
No.
Staff report? Okay. Is there any additional correspondence that we do not have in the packet that's come in?
This is the most recent.
Okay. We will now call for public testimony. The pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff reports and listed in the criteria sheets on the meeting page of the city's website. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward those criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional written testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the chair, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Is there a presentation this evening by the applicant?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hello, yes.
Hi, I'm Taylor Kemmer. I work for Beach Construction on behalf of Eric and Rachel Purdy.
Great. Can you give us your mailing address, please?
PO Box. No, 3535 Highway 101 North in Gearhart.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Eric, Joe Balden, myself, and Tyler Weston, who owns Beach Construction, met on site to go over shifting the house back to the northwest corner to get as far away from those larger trees on Spruce Street, which were the big issues for preservation because they are large. When we shifted the house back, it did get pretty close to that west lot line. It is under the minimum of 5. So I sent an email asking if I needed to amend our application since we were moving things, but I didn't get a response. Is that something we need to amend?
Why don't, Jeff, do you want to?
No,
Or Robert?
no, I don't believe there's any need to amend the application.
We may discuss that as a commission, but in any case, I think it's something we can probably address here tonight.
So in moving the house back, we were able to preserve 5 trees. The ones that I had marked in pink on the map, we were believed would be hazards. Either they needed to be removed for structural purposes or they had some issues that would be leading them to be taken out regardless of the build. And then the orange were just ones that would be lost to the structure itself. And I believe Joe goes over that in his report that we would not be removing the stumps. We would be cutting them down to grade and leaving the stumps so that the roots are still intact under the soil to not harm any other trees.
Is there anything else?
We were proposing doing a post and pure foundation where needed, where any of the roots, I believe Joe said that they were the buttress roots of the tree, would be in the way of the foundation, doing a post and pure to help preserve those.
Okay. Taylor, could you just once again, sorry, I was taking notes at the time. Could you tell me again in what capacity you're representing the applicant and your specialty?
I work for Beach Construction.
Beach construction. Okay.
Yeah.
And all right. Is there anything further you'd like to present to us this evening?
I think that pretty much covers the introductory part. I believe Joe Balden is in attendance to the meeting for any questions about the preservation.
Okay.
Taylor, I don't see Joe. Let me stop sharing and see if I see him elsewhere, but no, I don't see Joe.
I think he was planning on joining in person, but because of the potential weather conditions, he was not able to and submitted a letter in lieu of his absence. So I can go ahead and jump in on his behalf and kind of talk through just one or two more things, if that's all right with everybody.
Sure. Taylor, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. And was that Eric Purdy speaking?
Yes. So this is Eric.
Your name and mailing address before you put forward your presentation. We would.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
So this is Eric Purdy, mailing address 14988 Southwest Lookout Drive, Tigard, Oregon, 97224. And just to continue on Taylor's presentation, I did want to point out to the multiple letters from Joe Balden and Jeff Gearhart speaking to this plan. Joe speaks more in his letter about our desire to switch to a post and pier foundation, to preserve the stumps of the trees in the middle of the property in order to not negatively impact the trees to the west, and preserve the large spruce trees on Spruce Street to the east. As well as doing all of those things, he also mentioned going through and wind thinning the remaining trees, I believe 20%, in order to reduce the wind impact on those trees, and then also help the wind load on the westerly trees. We would also be likely doing a gravel driveway in order to help reduce the stress on the spruce trees to the east, so that they don't have as much pressure on them there with a paved concrete driveway. All of these items we are doing in the recommendation of Jeff Gearhart. In his initial notice of denial, he gave his 5 reasons on why he wished to see in order for our plan to move forward. And I believe that we have addressed all of these, and you'll see a few emails from Jeff in the package stating his full support of this plan going forward and the steps that we have taken to help minimize all of the impact on the roots, as well as preserving the trees on the lot. That's everything that I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other presentations on your behalf? Okay, are there presentations by proponents? Are there presentations by opponents?
I would just note, Clay, that we had not received anything by noon today. So we have nothing to add as far as pro or con. And yet we have, looks like 2 attendees, and so they can raise their hands if they would like to speak at this time.
I can't see them, Mike. Jeff,
Yeah.
I'll trust you to tell me.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Okay. Is there a staff response to anything that's been presented, Robert?
Excuse me. No, there isn't, because this application was submitted in response to the administrative denial of the tree permit.
Does the applicant or any proponent wish to make any additional statements before we close the public testimony?
I have one question.
Go ahead. Please state your name, and we have your mailing address.
Taylor Kemmer with Beach Construction. Since this is in response to the denial of the original tree removal permit, do we need to file a new tree removal permit, or would this be considered the resolution?
Yeah, so we would need to amend that application, but no, you wouldn't have to submit a new one.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are there
And
any?
This
Go
is
ahead.
Eric Purdy one more time. I did just want to point out, it was brought up in Robert's discussion on the measurements. So the 4.9 and 13/16 is the measurement to the setback. And that's the reduction that we are asking. The 4.8 3/4 is the measurement to the tree that is the spruce tree that is on the property line. So that's the house to the edge of the spruce tree. So that 4.9 and 13/16 is the request for the west setback. And then 12 feet and 2 inches is the request for the north setback.
12 feet, 2 inches for the which setback, sorry?
The north
North.
setback, the back of the back lot.
Okay. Thank you. Any other additional statements? Okay. We'll close the public testimony portion of this hearing and move to discussion.
Were there any opponents to speak?
We asked for opponents and didn't hear any. I guess one thing I didn't ask is if any commission members had questions for the applicant.
I have one, but I don't know if this is the right time to ask.
I think it's sure.
So for the trees in pink along that west property line, there's a hemlock at the north and a hemlock basically at the south of the west property line, and they're marked as hazards. I'm just curious what kind of hazards we're talking about, and does this really mean they need to be taken out, or could they be left to see how they do?
So I'll go ahead and answer the one to the south. This is Eric Purdy. The one to the south is part of a large root ball in the middle of the property.
Okay.
It's growing out of that large root ball, which is similar to the 40-inch hemlock sticking out of the 36-inch hemlock on the north side. So it's growing out of a large root ball and a downed tree. So our arborist has determined that that would be a hazard, despite us not being within the building range of it. And so that is why we're trying to remove that one. The one to the north, I believe that with the canopy, Taylor, maybe you can talk to this one. I think the canopy is within the building frame, and so that's why it wouldn't be savable.
So basically, what the canopy would indicate, you're going to be over the roots too much and it wouldn't survive.
Yes, I think so.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions for the applicant or their advisor? Okay, and again, Charles, we did hear that we did not hear any from any opponents, so we're going to close the public record and move to discussion. Anyone want to start us off? Robert, you had initially denied this application after the review by the city arborist. Are you in favor now of moving ahead?
I am comfortable if the arborist is comfortable, yes.
Okay.
And because I'm going to be basically implementing his recommendation.
These confounded mute buttons. I want to thank the Purdys and also the staff on this. The diligence on this has been really good. I mean, I hate to see any trees go, but if every applicant came in and showed as much concern for saving trees as the Purdys, I think we'd all be in a lot better place. I'm just kind of wondering, though, I think the applicant has done as much as they can, probably, within our power to ask them to change things, assuming we get all of those concessions down in conditions, but don't we owe it to the neighbors? I mean, nobody even knows what the plan is right now. So don't we owe it to the neighbors to actually comment? Give them a chance, like 14 days or something?
The neighbors have been noticed on this.
Not on the latest plan.
Oh, on the latest?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the neighbor who might be on the north side or the west side might have something to say. And I think we at least owe them a chance to say it.
Well, if the neighbors didn't say anything about the plan before and the plan is only really improved,
Well, it's the setback issue though, Clay.
the setback issue, that's a good point. That actually is a sticky point for me too. It might seem kind of small, but again, I just think, you know, on setbacks, we have to be incredibly careful. This is not the same application that was initially submitted. So
Hey, Jeff, is this one where we can approve and put a contingency on it that says, you know, go ahead after 14 days if there's no appeal?
You could do that. You know, if you do that, you're still under the 120-day clock. If they were to appeal it, then you're going to, you know, your next move there would be, are you saying if they did appeal, you know, if the neighbor came in and said they didn't like it,
Yeah.
then what's your recourse as the sitting body on that? Because you've conditioned it as an approval without a, you know, complaint by the neighbor. But if they do come in as complaint, then are you then saying you want to bring that back before you guys for another decision? Or are you denying it? You know, in other words, that 120-day clock is clicking through all this process, regardless of what you're going to do. So what's your action if they did come in and say, no, we don't like it?
Can they appeal it to city council anyway? So let's say we approve tonight, they still have the option to appeal to city council, correct?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's sort of our safety net, maybe?
Same
That we
thing,
should
actually.
maybe, what if we added as a condition that notice will be provided immediately of this approval to the immediate neighbors?
Well, they will be because they're a party of record. You know, they're a part of the surrounding notice.
I know that they got an initial notice. Will they get another notice now?
Yes, and you can, but I would go ahead and state that because that adds, you know, it's your concern. So go ahead and put that in there, you know.
I also would like to echo Mike's statements about owners making concessions to save trees. And I appreciate the work that the owners have done and the two arborists. So thank you.
Does someone want to make a motion? Do we want to keep talking about it? How are people feeling?
I'd like to make a motion, but I get to this point in the meeting and I think about all the different things we talked about. So I would like to move to approve this application is an appeal. I'm sorry, is an appeal, Robert? Okay, approve this appeal.
It's not an appeal. It's just an application.
Okay, this application on the conditions that they meet, you know, the concessions they put out in this meeting, and that's where I get confused. There's post-construction, there's could somebody, I mean.
Mike, could I just make a suggestion that all of the items listed by Mr. Baldwin in his conditions of Mr. Baldwin listed in his letter that's in your packet, just state that those conditions and we'll apply those.
Okay, so we approve. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then I would say, a further notification of the neighbor with a certified letter.
Absolutely. So is that enough of an emotion, or do you like it in my words? Jeff, I think.
You can just say, yeah, you can just say as.
What he said.
Yeah,
Okay,
what he said.
okay.
I'll second the motion.
So just one quick question before we do that. I mean, I've read the presented material, and it certainly would appear to me that Jeff Gearhart is willing to approve the tree plan, but should we specifically say that it's predicated on that approval of the tree removal plan?
I don't object to that. Just add that, Jeff.
Okay.
Just signed approval. You know, actually, let me ask a question on before last. I mean, so, you know, we're all saying it's good. I mean, I get what you're saying. We can't just take everybody on the words. On the other hand, why would he sign it? He's not a party to this. I mean, he just says he's willing to go ahead. So what is he accomplishing with his signature?
Well, so let me just clarify on that. They're going to have to amend it to what they presented tonight. So when he does that, it would not hurt for Jeff to just say, yeah, that meets my approval.
Okay, perfect.
What he'll do, Mike, is what he does is he goes out, him and Trevor will check the TPZ fencing, the erosion control fencing and TPZ zones before that disturbance is allowed. So we can have them sign off then.
Perfect. That's good. Thank you, Les.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so we have Barb seconded there, I think, Clay.
Okay, and Emily, will you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Moritz? Commissioner Bennett? Commissioner St. Clair?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nope?
Yes.
Commissioner Bates?
Yes.
Chair Newton?
Yes. Application is approved. May I have a motion for the chair to sign the appropriate orders?
I move.
I'll second.
Emily, will you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner St. Clair?
Yes.
Commissioner Nope?
Yes.
Commissioner Bates?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Chair Newton?
Yes. Emily, if you just want to email me those orders, I'll sign them and send them back to you electronically.
Okay,
I'm sure there's some very good reason why we have to have another vote on the orders after we all just voted to say yes to this, but we'll save that for a work session. Speaking of work
And
session.
Emily?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Emily, I have a quick question. Who
Yeah.
is our second for the initial motion?
Barb,
Okay. Thank you.
I want to retreat, Clay. I don't want a work session.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. Let's head down to where Les is. We'll go to the sun.
Yeah.
Who?
I don't know,
Okay.
Mickey might be there too.
I'd make
Yeah.
you the sun too. You guys pick. We'll go whichever way.
Palm
All right.
I think I'm
Springs.
hearing balls of ice hit my window out here. I think any place will be better.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, more exciting items to come. A work session item here tonight is track 2 zoning ordinance amendments, public benefits developments. Jeff, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll take it. And so Clay, just one note, you wanted to do your discussion of vice chair. Do you want to do that now or do you want to wait?
We could do that now. I was going to do it afterward, but we can do it now if you'd like.
Yeah, I would suggest go ahead and do that and then we'll get into the kind of other items.
What are you saying about what you're about to present, Jeff? Is this, are we gonna be
No, it'll give me incentive to push through so we can get out.
Uh-oh, we're gonna be here late. Oh, man. Get the coffee. Okay. Well, first of all, we have 2 members coming off of our commission next month. Charles Bennett, who is our most senior member of the Planning Commission, most experienced is a better way of putting it, and Barb Knopp, who is our mayor-elect. Charles, I have greatly appreciated over the years your steady voice through some of these issues. We've had some pretty hotly contested items come before us, and sometimes when the voices started cracking and the tempers were getting a little out of control, your steady voice, your steady opinion was always really well heard and appreciated at times to cool things down. So thank you very much. I'm sorry we're not here in person to do this in person, but I really appreciate
Thank
all
you.
the, all that you've done and the leadership you showed all of us at different times in different ways. And Barb, we're very excited to have you as our new mayor. I'll miss you and being able just to call you and go, hey, Barb, it's I hear it's icy over the pass. I'm gonna pass the baton to you, and you're also have that very steady voice when you speak, people listen. You have been an amazing asset. It's the best word I have. It's not a great one to this community. And I feel very lucky to know that you're now going to be in the mayor's chair, and that in these joint sessions we can have fun with you. So thank you very much for your service on the Planning Commission.
Well, I would like to thank all of you for aiding in my education of the things that I've learned on the Planning Commission, how to work with people. And I hope to see you at several city council meetings. So thank you very
try
much.
not to punt too many of these to you, but don't be surprised if you get a few.
I've got good receiving hands. Thank you.
So along that line, we will be getting some new members. I know we have one new member voted in. I don't know that we have two, but Barb is our vice chair. And with the departure of the vice chair, we need to think about nominating a new vice chair to take Barb's position January. I'm not opposed to having that vote tonight or having a discussion about it. I know that, this could come cold to somebody, or people may want to think about whether they would want to take that role. We could talk, maybe someone is dying to be in that role. Mickey, you've always been a very calming voice, steady voice. You would have my vote if you were ready.
Thank you.
Mine too. Mine too. If you.
Two.
Mine 4.
You guys are all too kind. I would be happy to do it, and I'll actually show up in person for that purpose.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Yes. Was that a vote?
Sorry, Barb. I should have showed up in person more when you were on.
That's right.
So, Jeff, any reason we can't just consider that a vote, and we now have our vice chair?
I think you can consider that a vote, although I prefer if we can go to Mexico and do it,
Yeah.
to Mickey and
Get the budget out. We're
Right,
coming
there you
we're
go.
going to Mexico. Okay, well, Mickey, congratulations. We'll get that special
thank
plaque
you.
ready for you. And again, Barb and Charles, I hope that things calm down in January or soon thereafter. You guys can come and we can properly celebrate your time and service to the city. Thank you again.
I just want to say to Charles and Bob, joining the commission, I really appreciated getting to work with you for the last year. Thank you both.
Mhm.
Okay, Jeff, you can run, but you can't hide.
You're
Now it's
ready.
time.
Okay, it is time. I will get my PowerPoint going here. You guys can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yes,
I can see it.
yeah.
I just wanted to say Daryl was in the house, that we had our old chair in the house, and I think he came thinking he might get vice chair nominee, so.
Oh, no, I only want to be chair.
Oh, boy, there's an insurrection coming. No.
I love it.
Good night. Have a nice holiday for all of you.
All
You
right.
too. You
Thank you
too.
for coming to say that.
Okay,
Nice to see you, but
bye.
I'm looking at your back.
Happy holiday.
I could stay and wait for the vote.
Exhilarating here.
All right, I'm gonna run through what this track 2 changes what we're calling public benefit developments. And I really kind of want to hit it, just kind of the concepts tonight. And then my thought was to get you guys the draft language next week. And then you guys, while you're watching the bowl games, can go back and forth on language. But it'll give you 2 or 3 weeks to prepare for the next. We'll have another work session on this and kind of look at the language and how it works. But tonight was just to kind of go through the concepts. And first want to just kind of touch on a little bit of what brought us here. And so at the last joint work session, these are some slides borrowed from Marcy and Herbsworks. But I thought they went over really what this is kind of about. So the code audit objectives to begin with were to identify ways in which the comprehensive plan can better live up to its intent, to kind of close that gap. And she talked about 2 different gaps there between perception and then what we're wanting to see, and then what we're wanting to see and what's actually in our code. And so one of the original motives for the code audit was external development pressures and the increasing size of homes built since the 1990s. And, now it's well above 2,000 square feet as these homes are coming in. At the same time, the public identified priorities, including workforce housing, historic preservation, environmental preservation, including trees. And these priorities have been identified over and over again. I always go back to just workforce housing, affordable housing, and you can look at the studies, go back to 2014. They've been on every single one of the council's retreats. Strategic plan priorities is always all those things we just mentioned, workforce housing especially, or affordable housing, preservation, trees, and historic, the preservation of the cottages. And so this is a regional, national issue, the housing crisis, and we can talk more about that later. But then she continued, these are steps that have been taken locally, and that's the kind of approach that I don't know if you saw the article, the interview with me in the story, but what I've also talked about the North Coast Housing Summit, it's got to be a tiered approach. I mean, we can't expect the state to solve this. We can't expect the national, federal level to solve it all. We're going to have different tools, and we're going to have to be able to go at it in different methods. And that is one of the reasons we talked about this public benefits proposal, and to address kind of the trade-offs. So it talks about addressing the preference among some property owners for larger homes while balancing the desire with public benefits. So there's many communities use this. So if you're going to limit something, especially house size or something like that, then you should at least get something out of that thing that you're kind of scaling back on, so that you might get some public benefits on some of these other things, which we have not made progress in over the last 5-10 years. So Marcy showed this. They did kind of a 3D summary of this, but on a typical 10,000 square foot lot shown in the green, you would have 5,000 square feet of white, which is the floor area ratio. And then if you reduce that to 3,500 square feet instead of the 5,000, and then you offer some kind of benefit if that person wanted to increase their house size to a certain point, well, then that way you could, whatever benefit you're going to get, that bonus that they're going to get, make that something that benefits the public at large. And so she talked about the code rewrite process that's coming up. You guys, I expected it this week actually was the code audit report, but hopefully we'll get it here in the next week. And once we get that code audit report, she sees, or Herbsworks sees, a 4-step kind of process where they're going to have policy neutral kind of reorganization of the ordinances, and that would be the first step. The second step, identify the potential list of amendments and code revisions that would be necessary and start talking about form-based code as well. And then step three, prioritize those and start drafting up those towards step four, which is adoption-ready amendments. She's showing this with the, this will be for city council for the extending the budget to have them work on these amendments as a $85,000 to $130,000 budget range. And she's showing it over approximately a year. I think that's very ambitious. I think we will be lucky to get this done in 2 years. And so that's another reason we talked about, you know, a three-step process where these track two changes that we're going to be talking about here in a minute as something that we would go ahead and start pretty much immediately next month, at least a work session on them. So if you'll recall track one amendments, we brought forward lot combination prohibition, the lot coverage floor area ratio with the gross floor area or unit size limitation. So that was to try to decrease the size of these growing units, repeal the planned development ordinance. And then later in the process, or as the process was going, they talked about limiting the building heights on oceanfront management zone, those along the oceanfront. And then at the very end, at the city council phase, they even talked about a grandfathering type clause for pre-existing and non-conforming structures. Well, of those, the only thing that really went through is the lot combination prohibition and the repeal of the planned development ordinance. So we were kind of left with this idea that we might go with a track two that would bring back that size issue through gross floor area and floor area ratio, and then refining the lot coverage, which would also limit, but then to offer this public benefits development, which could incentivize workforce housing, encourage the preservation of the historic cottages, the smaller historic cottages, and encourage the conservation of existing tree canopy. And so track two changes, I've drafted them up into 7 sections, which, like I said, I'll be getting those to you next week in the actual language, along with this presentation to kind of reference. But I've broken it down into zoning definition text amendments, floor area ratio and public benefits text amendment, workforce housing, accessory dwelling unit text amendment, a historic cottage, TDR overlay area and text amendment and map amendment, legacy tree canopy text amendment, alternative parking text amendment, and then that grandfathering. So the ones in the reds were the ones brought back from track one that would be included in here as well. And so just to touch briefly on these, and, you know, I just want to kind of get these kind of thoughts across tonight. We don't really have to have a big discussion on it, but if you have questions, feel free to, you know, just ask me the questions as we go along. So zoning definition text amendments, these are some of the things that have been giving us heartache, especially going towards Aluba and lately, and costing us lots of money. And I'd really like to see at least these things change. I know we will be going through this whole code audit, and if we miss some things or there are other things we want to change, we can come back and do that a year and a half or 2 years when we're doing this process. But these are the things that immediately I would like to get done. So the revised terms are the gross floor area thing. That basically what's given us grief is bringing in or pushing everything off onto our building official. It says determined to be habitable by the city's building official based on the definitions in the building code. That should not be the case. It should be what's ever defined in our residential specialty code, which is the building code. And whatever that's, you know, updated or changed, well, that's what we adopt and use, and not have this kind of squishy language that puts the pressure on Alton to make the judgment of whether it's considered habitable or not habitable. And so that would have been that'd be the first recommended changes. And like I said, I'll have you the documents here next week. Lot coverage is my other big issue. I won't even go through the text because it is mind numbing. But to basically show you what that really means to make it easier, here's a typical lot with the 5-foot side yard setbacks, 15-foot front and rear yard setbacks. Somebody has a house, a drive, walkway, porch, deck that I've identified here. The general concept, most people think, well, that's all got to fit in 50%, and then the rest is going to be green area and lawn, and that's what a 50% lot coverage means. And yet, that is not what it means in our language. Our language gives you this little bonus of 625 square feet, which equates to that much more square footage. And then you get 50%. And I would like to get rid of that and that little bonus. And that's what all that red will be. Because once they do that and they use all of that little added bonus area and the gray area, you know, they're supposed to have 4 mature trees on that site. And if anyone knows that the trees are native trees, you know, they're not small trees. You know, look at Sitka spruce and the hemlocks and the firs and the, you know, most of these trees are at mature. You know, this is the spread. That to me is 20 to 30 feet in one direction. That's not the full spread. If you go up and look at a spruce or a hemlock and measure that, it's, you know, it's usually 30 to 50 feet spread on those kind of full spread limb to limb under the drip zone. And so those are massive. I mean, especially when our average lots are 50 by 100. So to expect us to, if we're going to really want 50% lot coverage, well, let's get rid of that kind of thing that allows people to have more impervious area. And so that would be one of the main recommendations. And then I put in just kind of what I call legacy tree to be used in this public benefits idea. And so that's any tree that's 30 dBH or greater becomes inviable. It becomes what we would call a legacy tree. And then that legacy tree canopy means the protection of over, and I put the number at 50% right now of the trees identified on lot, where no more than 2 legacy trees are removed during construction. And so this concept would be to use that bonus area, or if someone does do legacy tree when they're developing their home, then they can trade that extra square footage, or if they can utilize it on their site, then they can gain a square footage. So the third concept is what's called workforce housing accessory dwelling units. Another one of those things that would be utilized in this public benefits package. And so these are just examples of what a accessory dwelling unit can look like. It's 600 square feet. They can be attached or detached, above garage or part of a garage conversion, as long as they're 600 square feet or less, and they have a kitchen and a bathing or bath area. Those are called accessory dwelling units. Ours would be part of this kind of ability to have that deed restricted for a certain percentage or a certain number of years, and it would be in our program as part of a workforce accessory unit, and they would get a bonus for that. And so what we're trying to do is protect these historic cottages. So here's an example of some of the ones just, you know, walking through the presidential area, some of the smaller cottages. And the goal would be is to save some of these. So what I've said here for as an example on this is that the yellow units on, this is the presidential area. And I've just kind of chosen everything between First and Gower as kind of a template to look at. It's not to say that this would be the final thing or what to look at, but it might be the area we might start with, or it might be more. But if you look at this area and everything that's under 1,800 square feet, every home that's 1,800 square feet and it's pre-1970 is highlighted as a yellow lot. And if you look at that, that's 160 tax lots that are 1800 and built prior to 1990, 1970. And 300 out of the 390 single family tax lots in that area. So, roughly a little less than half are in that area. Now, if you were to look citywide at the same thing using those same kind of criteria, you're looking at 485 tax lots under 1800 built prior to 1970 out of the over 1800 single family tax lots. And so this is a way to think about this. So these could be considered. I just set the number at 1970. We can try different numbers and see which ones. And then as we do this, starting next week with kind of the work session and starting to drill down more, we can even kind of look at what those bring up, at least kind of as a example of so many. And so then the fifth section would be what's called a legacy tree canopy text amendment. And so it's to define the legacy trees, like I said, over 30 inches, better define the TPZ zone, allow for a administrative approval if they do somewhat what the Purdy's did, but putting objective limits on what I'm allowed to, how much I can allow them to wiggle room on setback reductions. And before, if that doesn't work, it still allows them to come before the planning commission for a larger one. And then all legacy trees would have to have city arborist review, which isn't current practice. But this is another one that we've had in the last year or two where they tried to move it and tried different things to save some trees, and it wasn't the best. They did not come before the planning commission, and we lost some trees that I think if they would have had some wiggle room that they may have saved. So this is kind of an example. Just the X trees are the ones to take out that eventually they took out for this. And you can see that big red one there. That's a 56 spruce, 56-inch spruce. The yellow ones are the ones on neighboring lots that aren't part of their property. And then the green ones are ones that could be, saved through this. And so this legacy tree program would be an attempt to try to save more trees and give more opportunities for them to do that. And if they can save those trees, like I said, they get this TDR type bonus. And then the sixth section of these changes will be what's called alternative parking text amendment. This is an example. It's from Portland, but even if if you could put these in cedar shingles and make them think that you're Cannon Beach and downtown Cannon Beach, something like this, if this were to be attempted here, we had this kind of as a scenario model for our workforce housing task force. And in most communities, something like this couldn't happen. But, if these were in Cannon Beach in our downtown area and somebody wanted to redo these or one burned down or whatever, they knocked down one and built something different, they couldn't be done now. And I've got another example here, pretty much anything downtown. And so is there some alternative parking language that we could do that allows more flexibility into this for someone? And so there's the offsite parking example where, which they did back in the 80s and 90s for a time period where they allowed someone to utilize public parking spaces or other private parking lot areas and within a certain radius of downtown, and they pay into this fund, whether it's public or if it's private, they just pay that person. But that's one system that could be utilized, brought back and utilized. The second is an in lieu of type fee where somebody just pays into a fund and then we build parking spaces or we do something with that parking space fund to, shuttle or something else that, for off-site parking of availability. But to look at our parking language and to try to figure out something that would work better for us, because as you know, this right here can't be done, couldn't be replicated. This is not part of our code right here. This is that would not exist today if we came in and allowed that, our code. And I think this is really what people want to see in Cannon Beach. And yet you couldn't do that today under our code. So the seventh and final is the non-conforming pre-existing language. This is what we passed. So this is that lot combination language. So there's something that I don't think a lot of people realize, but we did this 2 years ago, year and a half ago. The adjustment is not a combination or recombination of entire parcels or previously platted lots or portions thereof, except to meet minimum lot size requirements of a district. So what we're saying is, if you have 2 lots, and here's a old plat, probably right around 1900 or something. But if you had block 2 here, and you own lots 1 and 2 and 3, right? What we're saying is you can't combine those and build one home. And we did this to stop people building the McMansions or whatever, the larger homes. I don't know if everyone fully understood, is that if you have a home, and this is that same area, okay? And so I want you guys to look at this. These are the white lines on this. A lot of people think these are lot lines. They're not, they're tax lot lines, okay? Tax lot's different than a lot line. And so this is a platted lot, and anything that is subdivided or partitioned now, since 1970 and our adoption of our zoning ordinances has to come through and get our approval, right? But a lot of these structures were built well before any zoning ordinances. And what they did, they just divided it up with deeds amongst each other. And you get these funky, and even this, see this right here, this is this parcel line. If we go back, this is this Pacific Avenue. And you can see here, they have vacated this. So if you go to here, this area right here is a vacated street back in the day. And so they are now, they own this property going out all the way to the vegetation line here. And so, but this person, if that were to be destroyed, or this person, if the house was to be destroyed or whatever, they're built over 1, 2, 3 different lot lines that run north-south rather than east-west. And so it is a complicated situation. And so unless we change our and grandfather in these kind of existing homes, and that's really what we're talking about here, is that we would have some grandfather type clause that would allow, if a home like this, house A, which is sitting on lots 6 and 5 lot lines, or house B on lots 3 and 4, if those were to burn down or something to happen to those, well, are we wanting, and this is just my question to you guys, is the intent of the ordinance is to make that person build 2 different homes on lot 3 and 4, or should they be able to rebuild to those current footprints? And that is what this language states, is that they would be allowed to rebuild to that current footprint. And so that really handles the different 7 sections that we'll be talking about next month. And the process, like I said, is that the code audit, the code audit report will be given to you guys, hopefully by the end of this month. Then they're going to start working on those amendments to that, working with the joint work sessions with you guys and DRB and the city council to say, what's our priorities on these rewrites. That's going to be a 1.5 year type process, probably 2 year process. So our thought was to get going on these track 2 amendments immediately, pretty much, start working on it in a work session next month. And so if that sounds appropriate, like you would like to go ahead and push at least some of these through, you don't have to do all of them. It doesn't, you may not even like the kind of public benefits thing after we start digging into it. But if there are certain elements of this thing you think we really need to push forward, like say the alternative parking and the grandfathering stuff or the zoning text changes, there's bits and pieces. That's what I'm hoping to get into next month and start talking about which ones we want to move forward and really dig into the kind of the public benefits, that TDR concept a little more. And this is that said in a kind of time frame. And so you see, even if we were to start immediately, as I'm proposing, I really don't see track 2 changes getting through every hurdle till probably next fall anyhow. So that shows you kind of my optimism on trying to get those other packages through. I think you're really going to be lucky to get those through in 2 years. I've done this in many, many places, and just knowing Cannon Beach, I know it's not an easy process. All right, thank you all.
Jeff, you always do such a nice job with these presentations. I always get great ideas for a slide deck on how to do a PowerPoint. Great presentation. Thank you. May we have the tree report?
Chance?
I don't think we had a lot of activity for this past month with the tree removal. We've had a pretty slow application period.
Hey, could you put up, Robert, the report or?
I don't have it.
Okay.
Here, let me look. Let me see if I can get it. It's in the, should be in the packet, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Ouch.
Sorry.
Oh, that was your house? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't, is it in the current packet? Emily, do you know if that tree report's in there?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was in the original one. Were two lines.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I got it. Okay. Let me share my screen real quick. Yeah, it looks like just the Elk Creek Road, so I'd say that's preserved stuff. And then the Arbor Care over on 208.
Yeah, and that one on 208 Monroe, I think that's still, I'm waiting for Jeff Gearhart to get back to me.
Okay.
Yeah, because that application came in right before he went on Thanksgiving break.
Okay.
We've been pretty slow though, right, Robert? I mean, except for those 35 trees, the pace has been pretty good. I mean, if you're looking at minimizing removal.
Correct. It's slowed down a little bit. We've got a couple applications over with Jeff Gearhart right now for review. Not a lot really interesting. Probably the biggest one with him right now is over at Rights for Camping. They've got a handful of dead and hazards that they want to get removed.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's surprisingly quiet.
Don't say that. Don't say that. We've got an ice storm on the horizon. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Oh, that's true. Well, geez.
What's,
Anyway, what do you attribute that to, Robert? I mean, is it something that we're doing differently, or is it just slow time of year?
I think we're just having a slow time of year.
what's going on up on Elk Creek Road?
That's that apartment complex up there behind the public works yard. They went through and removed a number of hazard trees and things that were moving into they were smaller older trees that were leaning over, growing into foundations, things like that.
Okay.
And they're going to be supposedly rehabbing those up there, and I think that's in preparation for that rehab.
Okay.
Oh, that's where they're going to put in Sitkas, right? Some Sitka spruce or something, right?
I'm not sure, Mike. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I heard that they were going to put in some native. Oh, of course, alder native, but I mean original.
Okay, moving.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. guys. Moving on to ongoing planning items, I see, let's see, drone shoreline protection project. Rob, is
Yeah,
that-
let me share my screen here. Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So you've probably heard some references over the last couple of months about how we've been doing a shoreline drone monitoring project. And this is going to be a little bit of a rundown of what that is, what the purpose of it is, and what we are hoping to accomplish from that. And so effectively, the purpose is that we have about 3.5 miles of coastal shoreline and approximately 200 residential and commercial structures with a varying types and degrees of shoreline structural protections, everything from seawalls, vegetated or non-vegetated riprap to just nothing. And there are a handful of dune protected areas as well. And we've also been receiving a number of conditional use permit applications as required by the Florida Dune Management Plan for more up-to-date shoreline protection structures. And those have been processed over the past year. And so I'm sorry, what's up? So what we did is we put out a request for proposal about a year ago for a drone operator to come and fly the coastline of the city and to do aerial photography and have georeference maps created by that. And so what we did is in response to the request for proposal, we received approximately nine respondents. We selected Crest, the Columbia River Estuary. I don't remember what the S is. But we selected Crest out of Astoria. They were not only the most cost effective, but they were probably the best fit for us. And you can see that there is a significant gap in some of the proposed costs. So some of these were from across the country and had significant travel costs associated with them. So we are getting what we believe to be very good value for money for this project. But the way that the project was done is that the flights were conducted for 2 days in June. The vehicle flew a pre-programmed grid pattern, which captured images looking directly below the vehicle. It also captured oblique angle images and video. And then afterward, Crest did some post-flight data processing and generated georeference map shape files, which we can use in GIS systems and in Google Earth.
Hey, Robert, let me interrupt you for just a second. If we're not talking, this includes me, I'm going to go to mute. I think we're getting feedback from someone's computer. It's coming over, Robert. And if we could all mute our microphones, that feedback will probably be eliminated. Sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So this is what the raw data looks like. And so these are two photos of the same exact thing, the same building here. And you can see these houses here are the same as these two houses here. There's nothing in particular special about this area. They're just two houses I was able to pick at random. But this shows us what the downward grid image looks like, where you can see here a little bit of riprap. You can see the structures, their relation to the shoreline, etc. But then here you're getting a little bit more of a 3D view. So you're seeing the riprap as well. And you're also seeing elevation differences between this 2-story gray house and then these other 2-story houses over here. You can see that there seems to be a bit of a drop off on this access stair, which isn't necessarily apparent on the grid image. And so that's the basic of what is gathered by the drone. And then this is what's produced. These two sort of long, thin images are essentially the maps that were produced by the drone. And then these maps and their georeferenced information can then be imported into a geographic information system. So in this image here on the left, which is taken from the QGIS system that we use here at the city, this has that same photo layer with the tax lots, streets, and we can have other information overlaid and create composite imagery and maps off of that. And so some of the applications of this project are that we can do shoreline resiliency monitoring. We can identify and conduct year-to-year monitoring of areas on the shoreline where erosion is a concern. And we can also identify areas where there may be encroachment on structures. We can identify and monitor the status of existing stabilization structures and also non-structural revetments that have been authorized by the Planning Commission. We can conduct project relevant work in relation to oceanfront setback survey verification, other projects. And we can also do data sharing with partner entities in order to accurately gather data regarding sea level rise and other related issues. So talking about shoreline resiliency, here you can see an example of an eroded area that we would be expecting an application for at some point in the future. You do have on the left and right of the image, you can see that there is some non-vegetated riprap, but then you have this very highly eroded area in here. And so in fact, we actually received we're expecting an application from this house to do a development permit to repair their riprap somewhat. So this is a useful application of this sort of data, is having this level of awareness. And then when we do receive an application, say from this house, we know what to expect with their application. And then as far as monitoring revetments, this is some mapping showing the type of revetment or improvements that might be present on the properties. And then also here in black, you probably can't see it very well. This is sort of a kind of an overlay of the actual stabilization itself. So for example, these purple blocks are non-vegetated riprap with the black showing where the actual stabilization is. And then this information, like I said, can be passed on and shared with partner organizations and can also help us with reviewing any sort of permit applications that come in. These two properties highlighted in orange were authorized by the Planning Commission earlier this year to have non-structural shoreline revetments. In fact, you can see them in these sort of light sandy colored areas right here on the shoreline. And so these were installed earlier this year. They were installed prior to June, so the drone was able to capture them in its flight. And so over the years, we can actually monitor the effectiveness of these from year to year and compare the year-to-year imagery and determine whether or not these are holding up. And if so, how long they're going to hold up for before we receive or can expect to receive future applications for further shoreline improvements. And then other project relevant work can include things such as oceanfront setback survey verification. So this is a screen capture from an oceanfront setback survey. We were able to take these survey measurements, compare them to aerial imagery that was captured of this area, and effectively ground truth that survey and make sure that it lined up, and try to avoid situations like we encountered up on North Laurel much earlier, and be able to head those off if we ever do encounter a similar situation. And there are other applications. We can use this in pre-application conferences with applicants. And if necessary, we can use it to identify when we have any sort of unauthorized improvements that we need to address. We can also use this information in that application, although that is not the primary purpose for the data gathering. And then working with partner agencies, we have been working with the DLCD NOAA Coastal Management Fellow, and we're going to be sharing a lot of data with him. And we believe, and he also shares this belief, that this information can help him put together better modeling with his project. And that will also give him much more local scale information that will be useful. And we can also use this with other partner organizations such as state parks. And so going forward, we have a 3-year contract with Crest that started in 2022 with the option to extend to 5 years. And the next series of flights will be scheduled in mid-June of 2023. And are there any questions?
That's a
Robert,
great result on that AR. I'll tell you, Robert, it's great capability.
Yeah, it does look really good. I'm excited for the city, and I'm sure you're going to be asked by other jurisdictions to share your plan. This is something that I think is really going to be really helpful up and down the coast. It would be interesting to have that drone run during the king tides, just to see how those high tide patterns are hitting. Maybe they're hitting them all equally and it really doesn't matter. But I was just on one of the images, I could see the tide line, the high tide line. And it had run up higher on one section than another. It might be interesting during a high tide or even the king tide to see if there are areas that are getting more water than others. Just an idea. You may have already explored, but.
That would be interesting. We haven't really looked into that. I know that one of the reasons why we were going with a June flight time is because that's relatively mild weather, which allows the drone to be more safely operated. And I know that with king tides, we can have adverse weather conditions. And one of the rules we had was that the drone wouldn't be flown with wind speeds over a certain mileage.
Well, the good news there is, if you dumped it, at least it'd just be in the water.
Hopefully.
Well,
Hey,
I guess it could get blown inland too. True.
You know, Clay, on that front, when I was in Georgia, we had a king tide app tracker for it was a mobile thing, and every king tide, it's like a citizen science thing. You would go out, and of course, our waters was coming up into our street network, and so the king tides went sometimes 2 to 3 blocks up into our historic downtown area. And we would go out and stand and hit the upload wherever that point got to, and they could track that through GPS along the Georgia coast. So there is that technology out there, and I think we'll probably be seeing that this way pretty soon. So.
Say, Robert.
Waypointing in the transportation plan.
Yeah.
Say, Robert, the processing that Crest, I think, did, do you also get the elevation of the dunes themselves?
We get a grid, so we get the elevation data, and yeah, so that can be laid in a fabric kind of thing, less, like you said, a LiDAR type of
Mhm.
elevation view with geo-coordinated. So we have a new GIS person, that we consult with the city. And so that's one of the things we're going to ask, or working with her on a project on how we get that kind of data on our website, along with all our other GIS, so that you could look at the contours map down there on that, to that level.
Yeah, I just think that might be a useful piece of information with the ongoing sand moving from south to north that we've been experiencing.
Yeah.
Just another thing to stay ahead of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Community Development Annual Review.
Yeah, so I want to share my screen, and this will be my last presentation of the year, so you can be happy with that. Let me see slideshow from the beginning. So I presented this to the city council, but I think at the retreat, I can't remember, but I wanted to present it to you guys as well. And so let's see if I can get it to, there we go. Okay. And so it's quickly just kind of a yearly update. I want to kind of make as much transparency as possible in our systems and our what we do. And so this will be something that we'll keep on our website every year and update some of these statistics, and just so everyone can track it along, just kind of like this is the drone of our department, yearly drone footage. So just an introduction, I'll tell you a little bit about the annual performance for us, our current projects we're working on, and the timelines on some of those major projects, and then summarize. We are involved in both the elementary school project and the City Hall Police Department or emergency operation project, helping see that process through everything from, we've been involved in hiring on the review panels, also with Les and others, but in some of that. And then we've also been involved in a lot of, what's going to be done with zoning on some of these issues and things. What are the proposals that they'll have to do? You will see as the Planning Commission some of that, like the variances and things like that. So if that needs to be done, what's the process on that? And then working with the different consultants through that process. The Community Development Department is also engaged in a host of planning projects, including finalizing the code audit, implementing the code development ordinance rewrite, and the transportation system plan, which was adopted last month or this past month. This Community Development Department has 4 full-time employees working across the community and region to support building, housing, planning, and zoning activities that serve the citizens of Cannon Beach. These are the 4, if you have not met them. That's me with the lovely background provided by Karen. And then Alton, our building official, and we should just say the region's building official, because if you don't know Alton, he has been building inspector or official, helping Seaside, helping Gearhart, helping Warrington, and pretty much working half-time in Astoria. When I first came, he was helping Manzanita. So he's helped pretty much everyone along the coast, still does it. He, I think, does want to cut back to likely this year to part-time. And so we're going to be working with him on that. And then Robert, he's done really great work and stepped in. He's really hosting the design review board meetings and running those, and does pretty much almost all of our daily planning activity now, or a good portion of it, with little help from me. And so it frees me up to do some of these large projects we're going to be talking about, and hopefully allowing Robert to work on some of those himself. And that's why you'll see those shoreline stabilization and some of the work with that. I've tried to hand that off to Robert to let him gain that as kind of a specialty area, and he can work with those. And then Emily just came on board, and is doing a great job. We hated to lose Katie because she was just a great addition to our staff when she came on, and that was 2 years ago. Now, hopefully we can keep Emily a little longer than that. And her son is currently engaged as well with the police department and works as one of the parking monitors during the summer, this past summer. So, you know, I think it's great to have her on board, and she's doing a great job. And really want to also say what a great team we have at City Hall with Jen Barrett helping out, training, Tessa and Public Works helping Emily and covering for Emily and Katie's position. So, and Rusty, of course, also helping out in that transition from our IT perspective. So to get to some of the data, because that is what I'm all about. So, you know, land use activity, I know you guys complain about the thousands and thousands of pages that you guys have got to read, but look, we're down. I mean, we are down as much as we've ever been, and how many land use applications have come before you guys. I mean, they're meaty and they're difficult, but they're not going to get any easier. And that's what I hate to keep saying that, but with these ordinance changes and things coming, it's going to be a full agenda, especially if activity were to come back. You know, we're kind of fortunate to have a little lull right now so we can get some of these things through. That's my goal. And the DRB, you can see it's down a little bit, and I'd say, you know, about normal right now on the DRB function. Development permits, I'd say we're at about what we normally are, 1 or 2 a month on that. And then tree permitting, although people think a lot of tree permits are being removed, no, we're down to about half of back 2020 numbers. And then the sign permits, that is about normal. We get about 1 of those a month, not a big activity. Short-term rentals, no more short-term rentals. In fact, we're down, and with that 5-year program kind of dwindling down, our 5-year unlimited, which we're seeing most of those kind of resubmit as 14 days, but you can see we have lost a few. And so then over into the building performance in our building permit activity, you can see we are not, last year was records in both permitting and fees. I don't think, well, that does fees is in thousands of dollars, $510,000. I don't think we're going to get close to that this year. I think we will probably top to 380 in fees, but it'll be around that and about normal. And then new single family homes, you can see, I'd say we're around about 1 per month. And then accessory dwelling units, you can see we have a steady, 1 per quarter kind of thing or so. And accessory dwelling units, workforce units, affordable units, none. We've done none in the last 3 years. I'd like to change that. And so my favorite in building and planning, you can see the revenue. These are the revenue streams. And I'm pretty proud that, wherever I've gone and worked, since I came in 2018, we've had a steady climb. I don't think we're going to get there. Like I said, last year was a record year. But I do think that you'll see us up around that 2021 number. And so our current projects, our major projects are the elementary school rejuvenation project, the City Hall project, transportation system plan. We will go into priorities. We'll talk about that. Code audit, doing the track 2 ordinance amendments, wetland ordinance amendment that likely we'll see something as well on that. Clatsop Regional Housing Task Force that we're working on. The Affordable Workforce Housing Program policy, when they passed the Affordable Housing Construction Excise Tax Ordinance back in 2018, it calls for the funds to be distributed by the Affordable Housing Program. We don't have really what's called an Affordable Housing Program, or at least no policy set up. So if somebody comes in and wants to do a project, and we have seen this over and over again, you guys, fairly recently, somebody wants to come in and do some affordable housing, do they have guidelines or policies in place that they can say, this is what we need to do? No, we don't have that. So that's going before the new city council in the next few months. We'll be going forward with policy items on that. And that will bleed over into our regional work, okay? Then we have the Ecola North Bank Stabilization Project, which is kind of tied up in funding right now with the feds. And then we have a sea level rise adaptation and mitigation planning project that we're working with Clatsop County, Fort Stevens, and the Sea Grant Fellow and DLCD on, which will update you guys on probably, I'd say March on that one. These are the current big projects and our partners. We have CETA and Dustin doing the elementary school project with our CMCG, our contractors is Brimick on that one. The City Hall, CETA is also our architects on that one. Our contractors is Emmerich, and they'll be involved as this builds. And then code, we had Marcy and Herbs Works as our code audit folks. And then they would have, if they get approved this coming meeting, will be approved to do the actual amendments. And then on the TSP front, we had Eddie and Parametrics do the TSP, and each one of those projects will have a different contractor to actually work on those projects with. And so the code audit timeline, I went over that with you before. I'm not going to go over that with you again. One of the reasons I want to bring it up, though, is because the powers of the governing body in our Cannon Beach Municipal Code says under the powers of the governing body, this is under traffic and other that Title 10. It says, subject to state laws, the governing body shall exercise all local traffic authority for the city, except those powers expressly delegated by the ordinance codified in this chapter or another ordinance. The city council shall assign to the city's planning commission responsibility for the annual review of the city's parking and traffic policies within the powers of the governing body. The planning commission, after study of the issues and public hearing, shall make recommendations to the city council. The city council shall convene a public hearing on the recommendations and consider those changes. And so there you'll have that under that 1008, 40 and 50, which is the governing body of the city manager, tells you which areas they're kind of assigned to, given the authority over. But they give you guys a yearly, at least they have in the past, giving the planning commission kind of a first review of parking changes and things like that. I'm going back before them, like I told you guys, when the new sitting council in the next couple of months, and ask them what they want to have you guys first review on for the TSP project. So you guys will have a review of these are our prioritized projects, and you guys have kind of a review of those and go over that process with them so that the public knows exactly what that process is on for each one of those projects. So the TSPN timeline, I've kind of outlined here. It would go before city council, you guys, and then the budget committee, and then they would set aside funds for certain projects, and then we would begin implementing certain ones in July. I think the larger projects that would likely follow in the following year. So my favorite subject, and always what I want to get to, is the land use legal issues. Roberts versus the city of Cannon Beach is Supreme Court denied review of the oceanfront setback appeal and sided with the city. That one is now at circuit court between the Haystack LLC and Roberts and city of Cannon Beach. And that is over, regarding the use of the right of way. We just got something back where that I think will actually go before the Clatsop County in September. I mean, you guys, we will be working on this till I die, I think, or which is probably next September, but at this legal rate. But yeah, these things just will go on for a while is what I wanted to let you guys know. So the Hamid, which was what Robert referenced earlier, we had over on South Laurel, 188 South Laurel, I believe it was. Well, we had to stop work on a home being built over there because of a dispute over the oceanfront setback survey where the city felt that the survey was an incorrect survey. And that went before LUBA, and we just got the verdict on that, and they agreed with the city. And Mr. Hamid, I don't believe will appeal that. I think he does have still some time to do that, but he has given every indication to us that he wants to move forward with the project, a revised project, an alternative plan. So we're reviewing those plans right now. And then on the Haystack LLC, City of Cannon Beach, like I told you, one of them is at Circuit Court. The other one is the one that is over them not getting noticed and believing that they should have gotten notice. And that, I believe, will be, we should find out on that fairly soon as well. I think it got pushed back, actually. But we will know probably in the next couple months on that one. But if you want to look from my perspective, which I love to do, is the budget. So when you look at the legal land use budget, you can see these little heart rate things. That is every time we go to LUBA and how much it cost us as a city to do this, which I estimate is around $40,000 per LUBA trip. But you see that push at the end, and that's because we've got like 3 different things that were still going since really the first of 22, or spring 2022 forward. We had the Roberts, we had 2 different things with Roberts and Haystack LLC, and then the Hamid thing that came in as well. And so you can see that trend line is not the kind of trend line I like to see. And I will have to go before the city council for a budget amendment on this. But, why I get such heartburn after, dragging our heels on code audit and dragging our heels on things, it's because I think this is, one of the reasons it keeps adding to this is because, it just keeps adding to our legal budget. And these ordinances, we'll point out some things, especially when we get down into this next month. For the work session, I'll show you how difficult some of this ordinances are, just to, where you can see where the legal issues are around there. So next up, summary. It's about clear and objective standards. It's about input and output, and film don't lie. Okay, so first off, on clear and objective, I'm going to read you a little something from the City of Salem's decision. And I'll quote from page 9 and 10. In this case, and they're talking about Salem's code, these sections 2 and 3 are not objective. These sections require evaluation of reasonably likely adverse impacts on an, quote, immediate neighbor. Similarly, SRC 240 yada yada requires evaluation of whether the proposed use is reasonably compatible or will minimal impact on the livability and appropriate development of neighboring property. The conditional use permit criteria are intended to balance or mitigate the impact of the proposed development on surrounding properties and require subjective, value-laden judgments. They are not objective and may not be applied to the application. Application of the criteria in these code sections required the city to engage in a value-laden analysis regarding adverse impacts to surrounding properties. The city's analysis, which balances its desire for commercial development against the proposed residential development, is prohibited by ORS 197.307.4. The second assignment of error is sustained. And I want to further, read you a little section from the end, which says, as we explained above, the CUP criteria that the city applied are not clear and objective, and the city codes does not provide a clear and objective path for housing development in the applicable CR zone. And so the city lost that. And so, you know, it's saying that we need to redo our ordinances. And quite frankly, I don't know a jurisdiction in the state that is not going to have to do this because of these new clear and objective standards. So the second point, I think the big thing of this year is that, you know, input and output, it's what I call it, you know, about the sausage making, good stuff in and good stuff out kind of thing. And really, I think we need to look at all of our from the code to the applications and to our boards and commissions and what we ask of them and what we can expect and how we run our meetings, because we have got to be clear and objective, and we've got to stick to the standards. And so if you haven't visited the Film Don't Lie site, just Google it on YouTube, Film Don't Lie. And what it does is it looks at the game film, and it looks at what we're doing right, what we could improve on. I do that with Robert. We're going to be doing it as a staff coming out of meetings. What can we do better? And I'll be meeting with Clay on this. Robert's going to be meeting with the chair of the DRB. And, you know, my goal is for us to be as clear and objective going forward as we can be, and to have civil discourse and to do it in a fair and open system where applicant knows what those standards are and what they have to live up to from application phase all the way through the hearing phase. I look at other areas. I study Asheville, Fort Collins, Boulder, all these other communities, because there's other examples out there. The beauty of Zoom is it's going to be recorded and film don't lie. See this little thing right here with the green light, the yellow light, the red light? 3 minutes. Green, 2 minutes, yellow, 1, red, pop, it's off. You're gone. That's how you run efficient meetings. That's how you get decisions made. We've got lots of work to do. So I'm just bringing it up. Okay, we're going to restudy these things and think about this and how to do this properly going forward. Other communities, I think, are good examples to look towards. So clear codes, clear communications, clear processes. That's what I want from our offices, my department, my staff, what I want for myself. And, you know, that's what I want from our community, to do a better job building this transparency going forward. And I'm committed to do that. We did not have e-permitting when I came on board. We did not have public notices posted when I came on board. We did not have all of these different things that we're building. We're going to even have new code coming up here in a year and a half. So all of these things, I think, are things that we have to be proud of, and we need to move towards that and making it available for people to see what's going on in their community and to be able to respond to that and be a part of this process. And that's what I want. I want these meetings to be just full of people and community, and develop that community spirit. So thank you guys for being part of that. I want to thank Charles for being part of this and committed to this for so long. And Barb, you know, best of luck, and you'll have to see my presentations again at the city council level. But I want to thank all of the planning commission, and I personally want to bring back kind of pre-COVID stuff, and really what I used to do in other communities at the end of the year. Let's have us a little get together prior to our final meeting and celebrate those that have helped us in the year, and those that will be coming on board. So anyhow, that's what I'd like to do next year, and work towards that.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Film doesn't lie. I already saw the presentation during our retreat. So
and was it pretty close?
See that on film.
Was it pretty close?
It was the exact same one.
All right.
Did he sell it as well as he sold it tonight?
No,
'Cause
he
I'm
was,
inspired.
he was
I'm ready to
quite
go
a
another
bit
4
more
hours.
enthusiastic tonight. So good job. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you, Jeff. Hey, can you order that little gizmo that has a red, green, and yellow light for the timer?
Yeah, that's
Let's get
exactly,
it.
isn't that sharp?
I like gadgets. Put it on the New Year's list. Okay,
Yeah.
anything for the good of the order?
I do have something, hopefully a minute or two at most. So I've been working with a couple of other people in the community talking about wetlands and where do we want to go from here? Are there changes that we need to make to our ordinance to make them even better? What I would like to propose is that we add to their January meeting a work session on wetlands. My hope is that we could actually even have a presentation from Cameron La Follette at Orca about the biology of wetlands, their importance in an urban setting. And by then, we may even have some suggestions for revisions to our wetlands overlay code. And we would try to get those to you well before the meeting so you could actually read them and think about them before we get to chat. So basically what I'm asking tonight is if folks are in favor of having a wetlands work session next meeting. And second, what would you like to hear about wetlands when Cameron comes? Because she has asked us, what do you want to know? It's an open book.
Well, let's start with the easy one. All in favor of adding this to our agenda next month? A quick say aye. 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 Charles and Bob, you're muted, but I'm going to assume you said aye.
Bye.
Okay, that's a quorum. Let's add that for sure. I'm excited about that. In terms of what we'd like to hear from Cameron La Follette, catching me a little cold, but I can think about that and maybe.
You know what? This doesn't have to be answered now. Anybody can email me. Jeff is welcome to pass on my personal email address, or you can email Jeff, actually would be perfect.
Yeah, just email me and I'll forward it on to Mickey.
Yes. So basically she can talk to you all about biology of wetlands. She can even talk a little bit about what other cities have done. So think about those kinds of questions that might be helpful.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, so Mickey, I'd like to hear more about the value of a buffer zone and
Okay.
what people find is effective.
Okay. Great. I've got that written down.
Anything else people would like to hear about, or certainly, as Mickey said, you can email her.
Yes.
Okay. Well, anything else for the good of the order then? With that, then we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for a great year. I hope you're off to and continue to have a great holiday season. And we'll pick this up again next year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year and go
That's
dogs.
right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.